For decades, Noah Beckett believed power meant ownership of land, of silence, of people's fear. He was a billionaire, feared across Arizona, untouchable in boardrooms and on the range. But when he spotted a half-conscious Apache woman in the desert and chose to stop, just once, he set off a chain of reckoning he never expected. Because when they overlooked her, they didn't realize who she was. They didn't know she was the granddaughter of the very people whose land Noah's empire sat upon. A leader in waiting, a symbol of a history long buried beneath contracts and concrete. What followed wasn't revenge, it was restoration. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from and make sure to subscribe, because the story you're about to hear isn't just about one man, it's about all of us. Morning crept slowly across the horizon, spilling gold over the desert's quiet skin. A circle of riders gathered in silence, and at the center stood the woman, unmoved, unafraid. While Noah Beckett waited to face a truth older than his fortune, Noah Beckett had never stopped for anyone on that stretch of desert. He didn't have to. He owned half the land from ridge to ridge, and the other half wouldn't dare challenge his presence. 40 years of business deals had hardened his instincts. If it didn't bring profit, it didn't matter. That morning, the air was dry enough to crack leather. From the helicopter window, the desert below looked like a forgotten sea, waves of rock and scorched earth. Noah leaned back, sipping coffee from a steel thermos, his mind already on the next acquisition. Then he saw her, a small figure, barely more than a shadow crawling across the sand. She stumbled, fell, rose, then fell again beside a jagged rock. The pilot didn't slow. Noah's hand shot forward. "Hover," he ordered. The pilot hesitated. "Sir, we're on schedule." "I said hover." Moments later, Noah stepped down into the blistering wind. Sand cut across his face like glass shards. The figure lay curled beside the stone. Her hair was black as night, tangled and dry, her skin cracked by the sun. Yet when he knelt beside her, she didn't flinch. Her eyes opened. Dark, steady, strangely knowing. "Who are you?" Noah asked, unsure why his voice came out softer than usual. "Nothing," she whispered. He offered his hand. She stared at it. Then, slowly, she took it. Her grip was strong, too strong for someone who had nearly collapsed. Noah lifted her into the helicopter, gave her water. She drank without a word. No thanks, no questions. But silence, as he'd later recall, can carry more weight than words. As they flew back toward the ranch, he kept glancing at her. She sat tall despite her exhaustion. There was something in her presence, something old, something unshaken. And deep inside, something in Noah stirred. Have you ever met a stranger who made you question everything you thought you knew about yourself? In the quiet between heartbeats, a new story had begun. One he didn't yet understand, but one that would change him forever. Noah didn't sleep well that night. The woman, still unnamed, rested in a guest room down the hall. She'd eaten in silence, refused a doctor, and placed a small leather pouch on his desk without explanation. It was decorated with beads and feathers, a thing that felt sacred. He hadn't touched it. Outside, the desert winds shifted uneasily. Security cameras glitched. His dogs barked, then fell eerily silent. Just before dawn, his phone rang. "Sir," came the voice of Marcus, his head of security. "You need to come outside, now." Noah stepped onto the porch and stopped breathing. They were everywhere. Dozens of Apache warriors, on foot and horseback, circled the ranch like shadows summoned from the earth. They said nothing, moved nothing. The only sound was the wind slicing through the stillness. And there she was, standing at the center of them, her long black hair now braided, her face painted in quiet ceremony. She looked like royalty, carved from time. No longer the collapsed woman in the dust. She stood as someone known, someone honored. Noah's security team stiffened. Hands hovered near weapons. He raised his hand. "Stand down," he said softly. The woman stepped forward, lifted her palm. Noah, uncertain, mirrored the gesture. The warriors parted silently as she approached him. "You saved me," she said. "You didn't have to. You didn't know who I was." "You needed help," he answered. She nodded once, then turned. Behind her, the warriors moved, not with violence, but with care. They carried bundles wrapped in woven cloth, carved wooden figures, and baskets filled with herbs. One by one, they placed them at Noah's feet. "These are gifts," she said, "from my people. You showed honor. We do not forget." Noah's heart clenched in his chest. He had never done anything without a price tag, but here he was, honored by a people who owed him nothing. Have you ever been thanked for something you didn't even know mattered? As the warriors vanished into the morning light, Noah stood alone among the gifts, speechless, shaken, and profoundly changed. The bundles stayed on Noah's porch for days. He hadn't moved them, not out of neglect, but reverence. Every morning he walked past them like passing by an altar. Hand-woven blankets, small wooden figures with deliberate marks, baskets filled with herbs, stones, even feathers. They weren't gifts, they were messages. One afternoon, while sorting through old property files in his study, Noah paused over a faded land report. Something in the corner of the last page caught his eye, a deed, scanned and brittle, with a name scribbled in the margins. A name he didn't recognize, until he did. It was the same name etched into the small carved stone the woman had left in that leather pouch. Curious, he pulled deeper into the records. What he found froze him. The land beneath his ranch had once belonged to an Apache family. Generations ago, it had been seized by the government under the guise of expansion, later sold, then developed, and finally passed into the hands of Noah's corporation, like a forgotten coin traded too many times. He leaned back in his chair, staring blankly at the ceiling. This wasn't just about a rescue in the desert anymore. This was about something taken, something never rightfully his. That evening, Noah made a quiet decision. No press, no advisors. He arranged a meeting with a tribal representative on neutral ground, an old well the Apache once called sacred. He waited alone until she came. Calm, barefoot, timeless. Beside her walked an elder, his eyes weathered with memory. Noah said nothing. He simply handed them two papers, one old, one new. "I can't undo the past," he said, "but I can return what should never have been taken." The elder stared at him, not with surprise, but with solemn clarity. Then he nodded. What would it mean to give back something you never knew you had stolen? Noah didn't take a photo. He didn't shake hands. He just stood there, smaller than he had ever felt, and somehow more human than he had ever been. Noah began waking up before the sun, not to sign deals or check markets, but to walk alone. The edges of his property once held no meaning, just boundary lines on a map. Now they whispered. He listened. One morning, beside the fence where the woman had once collapsed, he found a small bundle. Inside, a piece of cloth, hand-woven, bearing the same symbol as the carved stone. A spiral surrounded by lines like rays of light. He traced it with a fingertip. It was not just a gift, it was an invitation. Days later, with help from his ranch manager Marisol, Noah hosted a circle of Apache elders on his land. No press, no audience, just voices and sky. They brought drums, woven mats, a battered leather book of stories. They sat in silence before the sun set, and then the oldest woman spoke. "Your gift was not in wealth," she said. "It was in courage." Her voice was soft but unshakable. She told stories of drought and song, of plants that healed, of dances that remembered. Noah didn't interrupt. He didn't nod or take notes. He just let the words fall over him like rain. When she finished, they handed him a drum. "This is yours now," said a young translator named Joseph, "to remind you of rhythm, of listening, of heart." Noah held the drum to his chest. It felt alive. When he tapped it once, a deep echo rolled into the evening. When was the last time you truly listened, not with your ears, but with your spirit? Later they gave him seeds: corn, beans, squash. The three sisters. "They grow stronger together," the elders said, "as we should." That night, Noah slept under open sky for the first time in years. The stars above weren't just stars anymore. They were watchers, witnesses, and perhaps guides. The garden took root slowly, but so did Noah. Each morning he knelt at the edge of the plot where he had planted the three sisters. Corn first, then beans to climb their stalks, then squash to blanket the soil. It was more than planting. It was a kind of prayer. He spoke to the seedlings as if they were old friends, told them about the world he came from, of boardrooms, balance sheets, and the belief that winning meant taking. Now he was learning to give. Word spread quietly. Neighbors came, curious townsfolk, a few tribal families. Noah invited them to help tend the soil. No lectures, no agenda. Just earth under fingernails and shared silence. One Sunday at dawn, they gathered to celebrate the first harvest. There was food: beans simmered with herbs, squash roasted over fire, fresh cornbread from the ground-up kernels. There was music: drums and flutes, a lone guitar humming in rhythm with the wind. Laughter rang out where once only silence had lived. Then the Apache woman approached. Her hair was loose, her clothing simple, her presence still striking. She handed Noah a single feather, white tipped in black. "For courage," she said. Noah nodded, overcome. "We did this together," he whispered. She smiled. "That's the only way it ever works. Can you remember a time when you stopped leading and simply became part of something greater?" That night, as stars returned to their watch, Noah held the feather to his heart. The garden swayed gently in the breeze. He wasn't its owner, not anymore. He was its keeper. And for the first time in his life, Noah Beckett felt home. Sometimes it takes a quiet voice or a single act of kindness to open a door we didn't know was closed. Noah Beckett spent a lifetime believing success meant control. But when he chose to help a stranger in the desert, something shifted. He didn't just rescue her. He found himself standing at the edge of a world he had never truly seen, a world built not on power, but on memory, story, and care. There's a lesson there for all of us. It's easy to move through life fast, to build walls, to protect what we think we've earned. But every piece of land, every face we pass, carries a history we don't always understand. Slowing down, listening, and offering something with no expectation, that's where healing begins. Have you ever wondered what it means to truly belong somewhere, not as the owner, but as the keeper? Maybe the deepest roots grow when we kneel, when we plant with others, when we let the land and each other teach us something new. And maybe, just maybe, it's never too late to start. In the soft hush of early evening, Noah stood alone in the garden, his hands resting gently on a tall stalk of corn. No audience, no spotlight, just the whisper of wind through the leaves and the low hum of earth remembering. It wasn't triumph he felt, but peace, a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't shout but endures. The land he once ruled now welcomed him as its student. The people he barely noticed had become his teachers, and the stories they shared, once dismissed, once buried, were now seeds taking root in places he never thought to look. Healing had begun, but it wouldn't stop with him. There was more to rebuild, more to return, and above all, a promise to listen so the echoes of injustice would never fade again. If this story stayed with you, share it. Subscribe to Echoes of Racism so these voices don't fade into silence. In the meantime, I've chosen 2 stories I think will move you just as much. Take care, and we'll see you soon.